I'm Cathy Babis, and I am poised to become the first female seaplane pilot to ever fly a seaplane around the perimeter of mainland Australia. I actually joined the trip just to go on the adventure. I was in a seaplane group one day, and I was looking actually for someone just to see if I could go fly with them in their plane, since I hadn't flown in a seaplane since I got my rating in September of 2020, right in St. Louis, using the Missouri River as my airport for that training. Found this post from this guy that said, "Adventure of a lifetime, fly around Australia in my Sea Ray with me." And it had been posted 5 weeks before I looked at it, and I thought, oh sure, he's probably already got somebody to go with him. But I messaged him anyway, and he came back and said, well, I haven't found anyone to go with me. I've found people that want to go for a part here and a part there, but I want someone to go all the way around. And he gave me the cost, because it's a share expenses deal. And I said, I have the time, I have the money. And he said, tell me about yourself. So I sent him an email. First I gave him my aviation qualifications, but then I kind of went into a fun area. You know, I said, I don't snore. If you ask me to sing, you're going to be sorry. I'll do anything to help the journey happen. I don't care where I sleep. You know, we can sleep under the plane. You know, we can sleep in a 5-star. We can sleep on a concrete floor in a sleeping bag. It doesn't matter to me. I basically let him know that I'm really flexible. And about 36 hours later, we had a Zoom call, and it was on, just that fast. And then after, that was in July, and then we started having Zoom planning meetings sometime in October, and I noticed that I was the only woman on the call. And I said, well, has a woman ever done this before? And if they could have, the guys on the call would have done like a Brady Bunch thing. What do you think? What do you think? Well, no. No, it came out. We have a historian who did check his sources. He also checked with the Australian Women's Pilots Association, which I am now a proud member of. And they had no record of it ever being done. But nobody's flown a seaplane who is a seaplane pilot. And did you know that Amelia Earhart, what made her famous was not flying? Amelia Earhart got famous because she was the first woman to ride across the Atlantic. It happened to be in a seaplane, but that's what made Amelia Earhart famous. So I think flying around Australia should make me famous. The key is seaplane, and it's mainland Australia. We have to make sure we say that, because we're not going to Tasmania. And Tasmania, just like Hawaii, is a piece of Australia. And the Tasmanians are sensitive. So we are flying around mainland Australia. 2 Royal Australian Air Force pilots flew around. It took them 44 days in a ferry, F-A-I-R-E-Y 3 biplane. They had bad weather all the way, and at one point they had to wait 10 days for an engine to be brought by boat to the airplane to be reinstalled. So when we take off on April 6th from Point Cook, which is near Melbourne, there will be 5 or 6 of us going clockwise, which is the opposite direction of the original flight, and 1 guy going clockwise in his twin-engine Sea Bear seaplane. And that's Michael Smith, and you may be familiar with him. He's the guy who flew a Sea Ray all the way around the world in 2015, and he has a movie about that. We have Garmin navigation, and we are using Oz runways as a 4-flight type deal. We hope we have, as far as cameras, we have 2 Insta360s, one mounted on each wing strut, and then I will have another Insta360 in the cockpit. And what's neat about Insta360s, when you take the film, it's a 360 image, and you can focus it after the fact all over the place to get better pictures. And so we hope to have the skills to do those things. We have no business sponsors. We have lots of friends and family sponsors. I do have a GoFundMe, and for $100, your name can go on the side of our plane. We have a vinyl sticker maker guy who is putting names on the side of the plane, and that's kind of fun. So it might maybe motivate somebody to give $100 to fly with us. For $100, you get to fly all the way around Australia. At least your name does. We are partnering with a charity called Roses in the Ocean, and that is a suicide prevention organization, and we're just partnering with them to raise awareness. So we will have their logo on our airplane, as well as our logo, and any other logos for sponsors who decide to step up and be a sponsor. That would be, again, absolutely appreciated and amazing. But the people who run Roses in the Ocean, their son was a kind of an Australian Top Gun kind of pilot, and he took his own life. And this website, their website, is actually sponsored by and funded by the government of Australia. So they're not asking for money, they're asking for awareness. And they call it the lived experience of suicide. And that means people affected by, people who have tried, made suicide attempts, and, and people lost. So we're just raising awareness. Well, when I was 4 years old, my father, as a student pilot flying with a private pilot friend, was in a very serious airplane crash. They were flying a Cessna, either a 172 or a 150, into Madison, Indiana, and they caught high tension wires with the landing gear, and that flipped them upside down, and they went upside down. And my father was given a 60-40 chance against living. He was in a coma for weeks. Part of his shin had to be just put together with a spike and the crushed stuff taken out. I mean, he was very messed up. And the very first thing he did, as soon as he finished being in a wheelchair and on crutches and everything else, was get his flight physical back and start training again. But we had moved, and we're living at that time in Cincinnati, because his skill from the Navy was as an avionics tech, and somebody offered if he would move to Cincinnati, they would set him up in business. So from when I was 5, I started going to the airport on Saturdays with Dad. And as I said, it was my Girl Scout cookie route. Boy, those guys are a sucker for a cute little girl pulling a wagon full of Girl Scout cookies. I always sold the most of anybody in my troop. But when I was 13, a friend invited me to a Civil Air Patrol meeting, and I thought, well, what is that? And I went, and I instantly fell in love. She quit, and I brought my 3 brothers in with me. And I got scholarships through Civil Air Patrol for my solo. In 1970, my share, my 1/3 share, was $101. My group paid $101, and the state or wing paid $101. And that paid for 15 hours wet duel in a Cherokee 140. Yep. $303. And so the next year, I got another scholarship through Civil Air Patrol, where they flew a bunch of us to different locations. There were 4 sets. So my set went to Oklahoma State University. We stayed in the dorms, and we flew twice a day and once on Sundays, literally. And in order to go, we had to all have our writtens passed, a current 90-day solo, and we had to survive the competition to be selected. And within 3 weeks, we all had our certificates. And Then I joined the Army, and I wanted to be a helicopter pilot because I'd been working at a flight school as the girl behind the counter, and I was taking money from these guys, and I'd say, well, your bill's $1,000, and he'd give me $100, and I go, well, where's the other $900? And he said, well, that's it, the VA pays the rest. I said, what is the VA? And he explained about the GI Bill, and I said, well, I want to get me some of that. And because I already had my private license at the time. And so I very selfishly joined the Army so I could use the GI Bill to get more certificates and ratings. And I did do that. And I did get all of my certificates and ratings under the GI Bill, and I managed in 1980 to go to Embry-Riddle and get my degree from them in Daytona Beach. They wouldn't let me be a helicopter pilot, so I said, well, I'll be an air traffic controller. And what that set me up for is, in 1981, there was an air traffic control strike where President Reagan, they went on strike, and he said, you can't strike, and they said, you can't work, you can't run this place without us, and he said, oh yes, I can. And then I was one of the people who was hired after that. I did work a total of 4 years, and I was at Fullerton Airport, Long Beach Airport, and Torrance Airport, all in the busy Southern California airspace, and ended up being a chief flight instructor at a flight school in San Diego. Moved to Illinois and became a chief flight instructor at a school in Centralia, Ergo. And then I had previously applied when I lived in Illinois to work for something called the Defense Mapping Agency, which is in St. Louis. But they had changed their name to the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. We made instrument flying charts for military pilots to use worldwide. Aviation-wise, I want to actually learn how to fly on floats, because the Sea Ray is a hull-type aircraft. When you land, you're like sitting in a bathtub. You can stick your hand out and touch the water. It actually comes with a paddle, so that if you need to paddle your way somewhere, you can. I want to get my glider rating. I want to get a hot air balloon rating. I want to do a lot of stuff.